Welcome to Mainstream Moto. I'm Mike, and this is part 2 of my homemade motorcycle trailer. I did part 1 of just basically riding around a little bit with it, and if you want to see that, the link is in the description. I'm just going to be going over kind of the components of how this was put together. I did not have a YouTube channel when I made this trailer, and so I didn't get a lot of video. Well, I didn't get any video, but I'm going to try to explain kind of how I did little bits here and there. And I will share the pictures that I did take with you so that you can see how maybe some of that was done if maybe you're working on your own project. So like with any homemade project, when you start to make plans for something like this, you're always wondering, what are you going to use? Because they don't just make the parts. It's not something you just assemble. You have to figure out how you're going to do it. And I just wanted to mention just a few things. Just kind of a little explanation as to why I chose what I chose. I chose this tire because, number one, it's cheap. Number two, it's rated for about, I think about 500 pounds, which is way more than I'm ever going to put in this. It's also rated for 80 miles an hour, so it'll do whatever. I'm not going to be doing 80 miles an hour with this. So this actually fits into the specifications, and it exceeds the specifications. Another reason why I went with this tire and not like a motorcycle tire, you know, you could get like a scooter tire or something that's about this size. I didn't want to go with like an actual bike tire because it's expensive. It's too big. This really is about as big as I'd want to go. It's really the perfect size. And one of the biggest reasons why I went with this one is because you can get this tire anywhere. If for some reason I get a flat or something goes wrong with the tire, if it's a motorcycle tire, I have to find a motorcycle shop, hope that they have it in stock, and then I can go from there. This, any tire shop will have. Not a motorcycle shop, but Les Schwab will have it, Big O will have it. I mean, any tire shop that's around you will have this tire, almost guaranteed. And you can call them up, they can deliver it right to you on the side of the road if you have to. And that's why I went with this one, is because it exceeds the specifications of what I need it to do. I can get this tire anywhere, it's the right size, and it's cheap. Okay, so this is the universal joint here that you plug this into the bike, and this allows it to pivot left and right as well as up and down. Now this is actually very crucial that this part goes into the bike. Your vertical bolt needs to go into the bike, and even though it might seem like this type of joint could go either direction, it can't. Just for an example, imagine that my hand was the trailer. This thing has grease all over it, so here we go. Imagine that my hand was the trailer side and this was the bike side. The problem that you have with doing it that way is when you turn your bike and your trailer turns like this, you do still have this pivoting, and that's fine. But once you start to get to a certain point, when you start to reach about the 90-degree point, remember this is the trailer, this is the bike. Now you've got a problem, because now, since you've only got one tire on your trailer, once it gets 90 degrees to here, it'll actually roll over. The other problem is once you get to here, this doesn't twist this way. You now have two parallel points here. They're 90 degrees from each other, but this does not rotate, and that's the problem. If you switch it back in your mind where this is the bike now, and this is the trailer, just the way that it's built, this can still pivot up and down. But the trailer also can't fall one way or the other because of the way that because of it being this way. So I know, as simple as that might sound, I didn't quite understand it, because in my plans I had it drawn backwards from this for quite a while. And then one day it just like hit me that, wait a minute, that's not going to work. So roll that around in your head if it didn't click. And if you're going to do this, just take my word for it for now. If it doesn't make sense to you, just take my word for it that this vertical bolt and assembly has to be bolted to the bike first, and then this part needs to be going up and down. Show you the inside of this. I'll show you the details in putting this together. And maybe I'll throw some dimensions out there too. So these are actually pretty simple. It's not too overly complicated. This side in here, I actually drilled a hole in this piece. Drilled a pretty big hole and then welded that all up. So it's welded on the back of this. So this isn't going to come apart. This part really isn't that complicated, but I'll show you what's in here. What's in here is the same thing that's in here. Okay, so this has the two bearings that fit in the sides. These are just wheelbarrow bearings. I did check the price the other day. It's like, I think it's $2.49 or something for a set of two. So these are really cheap. You can replace all of your bearings for $5. Okay, and then there's just this little piece in between. And let me show you where it goes as far as relation to all this stuff. Okay, so this goes over there, and then this goes on top of that. This goes this other direction, and it fits pretty snug in here. Here we go. So, and then that's sandwiched right in there like that. So it's actually pivoting on these bearings, and when you put the nut on here, clamp down on that, this keeps it from smashing the bearing, the inside of the bearings. This little piece right here. Let's see, let's put that in there. Put a bearing in this side. Put a bearing in that side. You usually have to put this up in here and poke your little fingers inside. That slides in like that. Tighten her down and you're as good as new. And you can tighten that down pretty tight because of that piece that's in between the bearings. No matter how tight you get that, this will always spin very freely. And same thing as in this one, it's just the other direction. Duh, of course. Okay, so this is the rear suspension assembly here. This is an 8-inch shock here. I'll put links in the description for that, of course. And this is a 1x2 tower, is what we called it. And it's got a couple plates on both sides. I did have to use some shims on either side of this to make sure that it stayed in there really good and tight. This rear assembly right here is made just like the front part. So you've got the wheelbarrow bearings inside there along with the same shaft. It's the same, basically the same detail that the front ones had, only it's just longer. So that this actually rotates very freely. This is an adjustable shock, and so if you put more in here, you can crank this down a bit to change the stiffness of the shock here. This does not adjust as far as extending goes. For a while I had this in my mind that as the bike suspension went down, I could adjust this so that the trailer kept running flat. So that I could actually crank this down a little bit, and this would actually shrink down a little bit like that, and it would keep the trailer parallel as far as level goes. But I was wrong about that. These actually don't change from eye to eye here. It stays the same no matter what tension you put this on. which is kind of good and kind of bad, I guess, because you can't actually adjust your suspension. If your bike squats a lot, you can't really adjust this down so that this runs level. But it really doesn't matter that much from what I can tell so far. And this is the rear fender here. This is the fender off of a, I believe it's a Honda 50cc, just a little dirt bike thing. I'll put a link in the description there. The mounting, I'll show you a picture of that right now. But there's one problem with that mounting, and that is that when you're going down the road fairly quick, this thing will jiggle like a, I mean, it just vibrates. I mean, just about as fast as you could vibrate. It vibrates quite a bit, and I think over time that's going to be really bad for this weld down here. I did heat that up pretty good when I welded it, so it got pretty good penetration, but what I'm going to do eventually, I just haven't gotten around to it, is I'm going to put another layer of metal underneath here that extends out just to give some upward pressure so that that doesn't actually vibrate quite so much. I think it would be better to just have a little bit more weight on here than having this flapping all over the place. Plus it looks stupid when it's doing that. And here is the left side where it's got the swing arm over here and the hub assembly. I had to cut the pin for the hub down quite a bit. I cut probably 3 inches of it off, and I drilled a bigger hole on the inside of the swing arm here, and then I drilled a smaller hole on the outside right here. So I welded all the way around the pin on this side, and then I welded all around the inside over here as well, after making sure that it was really nice and square and flat and everything. So that's how that was done, to give that a little extra strength. Okay, so now we're looking at the bottom of it. This is the kickstand here, and this is actually pretty simple. All I got is I just ran this side of these little, I think they're 3/4 inch square pieces. I just ran them out and made little tabs, drilled through them, and put bolts through them for a pivot point, obviously. These are lock nuts here, so that you don't have to tighten it down all the way. You just tighten it snug enough to where it still moves a little bit looser. This side, I can't get this open. This is actually just a little black cap that you can. It's got a lid on it. I'll put a picture up on the screen. So once you put your bolt in through there, you basically just close it like a little lid. It makes it look real nice. The spring setup here, you have to make sure that this is above here so that it'll pull it up tight while you're riding. Yet it has to be in front of this pivot point as well, so that at a certain point it'll actually stay down. Otherwise, whenever you move your trailer and take it off the kickstand, your kickstand flies up. The bottoms of these are closed off so you don't get mud shoved up there whenever you set it down in the mud or whatever. And this looks pretty wimpy, but I can put my big butt on it, and it hasn't bented or anything. It's actually pretty tough. So this is just to add some support here to keep this from bending, because once you do get it to here, it will want to bend if that's not on there. That was an afterthought. So anyway, that's the kickstand assembly right there. So this metal right here, this is just some light gauge metal that you can get from almost any metal place. I don't know exactly what gauge it is, but I'll put I don't remember where I got it, but I'll look it up and I'll put the name of them up on the screen there. And this is actually just Z metal from Home Depot. I believe these are from Home Depot as well. Okay, so now the inside. The inside actually is pretty ugly so far. It's not finished. I haven't finished this part. So let's see. There's a whole tray running along the entire bottom that I will be putting some foam in, and then putting like tools any tools that are specific to fixing this trailer in case it breaks down or whatever are going to go in that bottom tray. So here's another part that isn't quite done yet. So this is the wire that comes up out of there. I'm going to put just a completely flat panel back here so that everything will actually be tucked away back in there where the lights come through. So this is the Fender Extension, or what, I don't know what you want to call it, that goes onto the back. It's pretty simple. It just goes to the back like this. But this right here is, I believe it's called a tamp pad for a coffee shop, like an espresso shop. I didn't have to cut it or anything. This is actually just the size that it comes in. And it's just screwed or bolted onto the little plate here, and then this just wraps around there and goes through with the trailer pin. So I wanted to get this kind of hooked up, show you how hard it is to hook this thing up. Pretty simple. You just aim this up. Come on. And then just get that straight anyway. And there that is. Hook up the lights. Just like that. That's the problem with things fitting really tight together, is they fit really tight together. Okay, so that goes in there. The chain, which I always debate whether that's a good idea or if it's even required to have. I think if this came disconnected, I don't think I'd want it actually connected to me. I don't think that the electrical is hooked on under the seat, but trust me, the lights do work and all that mumbo jumbo. Simple as that. Okay, now as far as the bike goes, this is the wire, runs up inside here. This is just, I think, 2 inch by 2 inch, 1/4 inch thick. These rods here, these are welded into here. It actually goes all the way through this piece here. This bar actually goes all the way through, and it connects up to where the foot pegs are. So that's the rear foot peg. There is actually a hole already here. And this side is different than the other side. This isn't a symmetrical piece. The distance between this hole and the inside of your tire, you can measure to that, is going to be different than this one on the other side and to your tire. So you have to draw that whole thing out on a piece of paper or a piece of plywood or something in order to figure out how wide you actually need to make these things. I'll show you the other side. This bracket just kind of goes straight up, and I'll show you a picture of that being welded. Okay, and now this back hitch, the way that it hooks into the bike, hitch starts there, goes up, it bends in, and then up through the bottom of the plastic that covers the tire, I guess. And I had to cut that out. And another thing I wanted to mention was they stick out past the trailer, and the reason why this is these are kind of like the crash bars or frame sliders or whatever you want to call it for the trailer. So if you do end up falling over or dropping the bike or something, you don't end up smashing up your trailer. It'll actually just land right on these. that's pretty much it for my trailer. If you're interested in these kind of things, if you have a question, go ahead and leave it in the comments. If I didn't get it covered, I tried to cover everything, but I always miss something. So if you have a question, leave it in the comments below and I'll try to get to it. I'm going to try to put links in the description for pretty much all of the little pieces and parts that I ended up buying. You know, not every bolt and everything, but you know, the tire, the hub assembly, shocks and stuff like that should be in the description. Hopefully this helped you out with a little bit of information. I know I learned a lot making it, and if I ever do this again, I'll be sure to make a video about it so that you can watch that as well. So thanks for watching the video. That's not going to be the only thing that I ever build for my bike. Stay tuned, and because next we're going to talk about this. Bye. Hurt. My head. So, oh, that's covered in grease. No, I'm covered in grease.